Kicks and Kicks is the only talk show that meets your sneaker and martial arts needs. I'm your host, Jacko, and today I'm here with successful podcast host, actor, and digital creator, Christian Reeve. How you doing, buddy? I can see you laughing over there. What are you laughing about?
Successful. What are you basing that on?
Successful as in you're doing what you love, basically. That's how I define success.
All right, fair enough. You got me there.
Okay. But, I think you're successful. You're successful in my eyes, and you were just talking to me a minute ago. You were just doing a live with thousands of people. 5,000 was it?
No. So I wish. No. On TikTok, I recently got to 5,000 followers, and it happened in the midst of TikTok. And just if you allow me to go on a side trail for a second.
No, definitely.
The interesting thing about TikTok is when they randomly start pushing one of your videos, because this will happen, they'll just randomly start pushing it and it will suddenly start getting a lot of views. I know you know this, but maybe the viewers don't. That is the best time to go live.
Yeah.
Because you get loads of follows because people are already checking out that video and they say, oh, look, they're live. And then they'll go check out your video and then blah, 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 blah. And also certain times of the day, like obviously we're in the UK, but I've noticed that if it's like 6, 7 p.m. on a weeknight, weekend's a bit different. There's less people online because, people are doing shit. But in the week, loads of people are online.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's another good time to do it as well. But anyway.
I always find, 6 or 7 is when a lot of, US people are on as well. So it's like a nice middle ground where you've got the UK and the US audience sort of on at once. And so I always find it's the best time to sort of post videos and stuff like that. But anyway, we'll start with how we know each other, basically. I'll go into this a little bit just because we've got, plenty of conversations where we discuss this in detail. So I don't want to go into too much detail today. But basically, I came across Christian on Reddit about 2 years ago. And I was just looking for people sort of to network and collab with. And I we've worked on a few projects since then, and I definitely call him, one of my best friends. I speak to him. You've made it, mate. You've made it to the best friend category. But we speak like on a regular basis, and I'm excited to finally be interviewing you today rather than the other way around. And I think you've got a really interesting story and a lot of value to give people, even though he doesn't have the confidence to see it himself. But I definitely think you've got a lot of value to give. So I'm excited to have a deep dive into that today.
Can I just address that real quick?
Yeah,
but I just want to address that point real quick. It's not that I don't have confidence. What I've kind of realized, especially during this pandemic, right, is that so many people are creative and talented and human beings. We're all talented. We all have different talents. But the way that I feel is that any talent that I have, it's like being a goldfish in the ocean. It's like, okay, great, you can sing a bit, you can do a bit of acting, but so can these millions of other really, really, really amazing people. And so like when I look at that, sometimes I'm a bit like, we'll see what happens, like, but one thing that's changed, and this is definitely because of people like you with your positive thinking, because I am a positive minded guy, but occasionally once in a blue moon I get a bit like, ugh. And things like what you've said to me in the past about, focusing on doing what you love, and also just being willing to try things. You know what I mean? Even TikTok, like TikTok, for so long I was like, oh, I'm not going to go on that. Like, that's just silly. Like, why would you do that? And now TikTok has become the thing that I'm most successful at. You know what I mean? It's weird.
It's probably the thing that you I think you've said to me before, it's the thing you enjoy the most, or one of the things you enjoy the most as well. It's not just the success, it's that you've grown to actually love using the platform. And I think the way you're comparing yourself to other people, I think it is a product of the world we live in today, because whereas before the internet, you were just comparing yourself to the people immediately around you, family members, people at school, friends and stuff like that. But now it's a global, entertainment is global these days. You're comparing yourself to people from America, people all over the country, and it has its ups and downs, because we wouldn't know each other if it weren't that way. But also, you wouldn't know these thousands of other people that are just as talented as you. But that's where the good gets separated from great, because it's all about the execution. Do you know what I mean? Like there are a lot of people that can sing, but it's about the way you package it, and you know how you need to get personal with it. You need to put your own spin on it, because I know there's a lot of people that can sing as well as you and act as well as you, but there's not another Christian Reeve, is there? Do you know what I mean?
You're a wise man, Jack. I'll give you that.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna rattle off hopefully what we'll be touching on. So I want to start with your time living in Estonia, because I think that's really interesting. There's a few things I want to sort of zoom in on there, and then acting. So some of the roles and things you've appeared in, and then we'll end on the podcast and talking about some of the guests you've had on there, and any upcoming projects and things you've got planned.
Sure.
So we're sort of doing like a past, present, and future kind of thing, just to sort of start off, and then maybe if you're interested, we'll do a second episode and you can come on and we'll talk about some other things. But that's what I'm going with today. So Estonia. So when I first contacted you is when you were living in Estonia. I think you were planning on coming back, shortly after I first started talking to you. And I think you were there between 2 and 3 years. I think you said about 2.5 years you were living there permanently. Is that correct?
Yeah, give or take. I always just say about 3 years, because there were other times when I was living there even before then. Yeah. I just kind of accumulate all of it together, and it's about roughly 3 years.
So what was your reason for living there? What was your reason for going over there in the first place?
It's a long story. Do you want the whole story? Yeah.
If you're willing to give it, or just because I before I met you, I didn't know anything about Estonia, so I didn't.
Okay.
It wouldn't be a place for me to suddenly go and live. So I just wondered if there was a reason for you going over there.
So when I was at university, I met this girl, and obviously I can't go into specifics, but she was Estonian, lovely girl, still friends to this day, and we were living together, we were at uni together, all of this stuff. And basically, when it came to when we graduated, we were working in this like hotel place, right? I was working like crazy 60-hour weeks, trying to make ends meet, being a poor student, you know how it is.
Yeah.
So it got to a point where, I hated the job, and obviously, it's not what I want to do with my life. I was like 3 months out of university. I've got this degree now. Surely I should be able to use it, right? That's why I originally did the degree. But I just couldn't find anything. And, there are a few bullets that I dodged. There's a lot of like fake companies out there, or more specifically, sales companies that are basically trying to con you or give you like marketing, what do they call them? Pyramid scheme style setups or multi-level marketing schemes, but sometimes they just outright lie. I remember interviewing for a job here in Manchester that was one of these, and they legit said they were a marketing exec role, and they listed all the standard things you would see in a marketing role. I get there, and it's just a con, and I was pissed off, and I won't tell the story because it's not relevant to this, but like suffice it to say, I was pretty annoyed in the interview, and this guy's looking at me like, yeah, I know you don't want, you don't want this position, you're angry. And it's like, you're thinking like, damn right I'm angry, wasting my time. But anyway, that's what my time coming out of university was like. And I was a bit disillusioned. I was a bit like, what am I doing? And my ex was in a similar position as well. She was kind of trying to figure out what she wanted to do. And, I remember very distinctly, we sat down in a coffee shop. I remember this very vividly, and we were discussing like what to do. And I was kind of my usual panicky self because back then I used to panic and worry about everything, whereas she was the calm, like no, like really, like had her shit together.
She was like the anchor. Type. She was like the anchor.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, don't get me wrong. Like I worked hard, and I made sure that we were okay and everything, but I worried like a lot. And she was a bit calmer and stuff. And we were younger, we were clueless. But anyway, we were talking about our options, and I remember that she suggested Estonia. But here's the thing: she suggested it as like a short-term thing. Like, here's an idea, here's something we can do. My family is over there. We can be with them for a bit. We can, maybe put some money together, figure something out, and then come back to the UK. And to me, it sounded logical. It's like, okay, we build some sort of plan while we're there, and we come back. Because to be honest, one of the biggest reasons was the cost. It was so expensive to just live, in London. I've said this a million times before, but think about this. We were living outside of London, and I was paying like 900 a month just for the rent.
That's crazy.
And the only reason I was paying for that much was because it was close to the university. If that university didn't exist, it would have been probably like 500 a month, maybe a bit more, but it wouldn't have been that much.
Sorry, what university did you go to in Egham?
Royal Holloway University.
Okay, my good friend goes there actually, because I was there.
Oh, really?
I was in Egham a few weeks ago to meet one of my friends.
Oh, no way!
Yeah, no, it's really strange. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I lived there for years. Yeah.
Is that where you grew up, Egham? Then?
Mm-mm. No, I grew up in northwest London, from the suburbs. Okay. Egham, my first kind of like living, because when I moved out of home when I was 21, so this would have been 2014, this was like my going away. This was like becoming an adult fully. You know what I mean? It was a big thing. And it wasn't even that far. Like I said, it was like 45 minutes away, but it felt like a big deal. And it kind of was, in that time I became a man, I became an adult, you know what I mean? And I never really kind of looked back at London, to be honest with you. And it's part of the reason why I moved up here to Manchester, because I kind of felt like London is in the past. That's done. That's then. This is now. But to bring it back to Estonia, like we were really kind of wondering what to do, because I think my ex-partner, she always wanted to be in London, because I think for her, like, she saw London as like, that's where everything's happening. That's where most people think everything is happening. And I mean, I can't speak for her, but I have to say that like London is just one option for the UK. It really depends what you want to do. You know what I mean? If you're talking finance, stuff like that, then yeah, London is where you need to be. But if you're talking arts, creatives, stuff like that, London isn't necessarily the only place.
No.
Manchester, for example, is very creative. There's other places like, is it Exeter or somewhere? I can't remember. There's somewhere. Basically, the UK now, it's in a time where people are realizing that there's so many people that commute into London from places as far as like Nottingham and places like that, because it's so expensive. And funnily enough, it's actually cheaper overall to commute in and do that every day.
Definitely. Yeah. Houses in London are crazy. Or
even just an apartment.
Apartment. Yeah, that's what I mean. Apartment, renting something in London is crazy.
And here's the reality: like you can get a flat in London on cheap, but it won't be nice, and it won't be in a good area. That's the thing. It's like, if you want to live a nice life, then it costs a lot of money. And look, I'm not completely down on London. London does have good things to offer, but realistically, to have a good, fun, enjoyable life in London, you need to be earning quite a bit of money.
Yeah,
that's the reality, and that was the reality for us. Coming out of university, like no one told us, especially the university didn't tell us that we would have so much trouble finding jobs coming out of uni. Because the one thing that's more important than a degree, which trumps a degree every single time, is experience.
Yeah.
I mean, fast forward to now, I have a degree and 4 years experience. And guess what? I've been unemployed for a year and a half. Now, okay, yeah, we have a pandemic going on, but that hasn't really made a difference to the nature of marketing jobs. It hasn't impacted, because everything's done online these days. It's just, it's more about who you know rather than what you know. It's that standard trope.
Definitely. If you know someone in the company, you're so much more likely to get a role. I've noticed that as well.
But as always with me, this is a long-winded story. So let's step it up a gear and get to Estonia. So I always like to give a bit of context as to where my head is at and why things happen. So basically, my head was in this kind of frame of mind of, I need work. I can't do this hotel job anymore. It's killing me because it's minimum wage and I'm working like 60, 70-hour weeks. It's too much. And we just couldn't sustain it. We couldn't continue paying the bills. And we had the option of extending the house contract for another year, but I just didn't see the point as well of staying in our uni town if we're not going to study. Like, it'd be different if we were doing a master's, you know, but yeah. And I was just ready to move on at this point.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Like I said, we're in that coffee shop, we're talking it over, and she's telling me, my ex is telling me, it's not what you think it is. It's, you know, Estonia is a different country. It's not the UK. Systems are different. Things work differently. And me being like this adventurer type, like, oh, I'm really excited. Yeah, live in a new country. This will be amazing. And it was. But she was right. The systems are not what you think it is.
Okay.
Yes.
So in what ways were they different? In what ways were they different then?
Look, I'm not going to sit here and like dump on Estonia, because Estonia is a great country. But at the same time, I'd say like just systems in general in comparison to the UK are not, like, people in the UK don't realize how lucky they have it with things like, for example, the benefit system, or, you know, or even just something simple like hiring and firing policy. Think about how difficult it is to fire someone in the UK.
You need a good reason. You
have to go through a whole process. And to be honest, what we tend to do here in the UK is we do like a phasing out thing, or, you know, instead of firing someone, we try and put them into a different department.
Yeah, you'd like they almost ask them to leave, and then they just tell everyone that, oh, so and so chose to leave out of their own accord.
And that's because of the suing culture we have here, because you could quite easily sue them and win probably. But in Estonia, and this isn't just exclusive to Estonia, this is a Europe thing. So for anyone listening, don't jump on me about this. This is a Europe thing. But I did see this with my own eyes. I saw people get fired on just like that. They've been working for the company maybe 5 years, 7 years, and, you know, like for instance, I remember this company I worked for, and there was a guy who was right at the top of the company, and he only visited, let's say, once every month. He was a busy guy, but he visited once every month, and pretty much every time he visited, people were getting fired.
Really?
It's kind of like that was his only point of being there. Was
he's like the Grim Reaper, then, is he? Everyone got scared when they saw him.
No.
Or was he a nice guy? It was just his job, was it? Or
was he a nice guy? That's an interesting question. He was a businessman. Let's just leave it at that.
He did what he had to do then.
Yeah, I mean, you can run a business and still have ethics and morals and stuff, but most people don't. At the top, most, you know what I mean? It's and like, in fairness, you can't take things too personally. Like, you know, a lot of the time it is just about performance and look, especially when companies are traded on stock exchanges, or you've got private investors and stuff, they don't care about, oh, this person's been working for the company for this many years and they've done this, this, and this. What they care about is, what were the numbers in the last quarter? What were the numbers compared to last year? That's what they care about. And when you look at it like that, if someone is not performing, then they're going to be out. But here's the thing. I saw a lot of people get fired where that wasn't the case. And it was more of a political move. You know, it was, we need to get rid of this person because they don't fit with us creatively, or they have opposing ideas. You know, I left one job because it was toxic, and also because I knew that they were trying to find a way to fire me. I'm not 100% certain. I had a pretty good feeling that if I'd have stuck around, they would have found a way. And I was like, screw that. I'll go somewhere where they'll pay me more money and there's no toxic environment and I can avoid all this. And so that's what I did.
So they pretty much didn't need a reason, a good like work-based or performance-based reason to fire you. They could just fire you because you didn't fit in with the team, or you didn't agree with certain things.
They'll find a creative way of putting it. You know, that's the job of HR. But yeah, they would. I mean, like I said, like I said, I've worked in hotels, I've worked in supermarkets, I've worked in plenty of places that have high turnover rates for legitimate reasons. You know, if you take the hotels, it's because, you know, students are working there. This was the highest turnover rate I've ever seen in a company ever. And this was an office. And don't get me wrong, you know, these days it's pretty common to only stick in an office for like anywhere from 6 months to 2 years maximum, right? That's generally, you know, I'm sure you can agree with that. It's probably the same in your company. It's, you know, you get what you need, you move on, either you get a promotion or you go to a new company, right?
Yeah.
The work game has changed. But this was ridiculous. I literally, I think overall in my time there, I worked there for like a year and a bit, and I must have seen at least 30 people get fired.
Really?
I remember once there was a guy who'd literally come back from his holiday, and they just fired him the day he got back.
Oh wow!
It was mad.
So no remorse,
Yeah.
literally just wow. Okay.
Yeah, well,
No, yeah.
I mean, I suppose at least they kind of like gave him his holiday. Imagine being fired on the holiday; that would have been worse.
Oh, that would have been yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, enjoy your holiday. You're fired. Like, no.
I'm
But
surprised they
was
didn't do it
brutal.
before. Like they were like, oh, we know you've got annual leave next week, so just don't bother coming back, and we're not paying you. Yeah.
I mean, I've seen that. I've seen companies do that before. You know, obviously it's very common for people to take their holiday and then just put in their notice as they take their holiday. You know, it's common too. But yeah, you know, I saw a lot of stuff like that, and it was, you know, pretty brutal the way they would do it. It was pretty low. But this isn't just, like I said, this isn't specific to Estonia. This is companies in Europe. They get away with a lot because the culture and the law more specifically is different. You can get away with a lot more. Don't get me wrong, there's still things in place to protect employees, but mostly it just protects the employers. And that, to me, really kind of opened my eyes about how lucky we are here in the UK as far as employment is concerned. And I mean, that shady stuff still goes on here, but like, at least there is some degree of measures in place to protect employees. But yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, to get to like the main overall topic, like I went to Estonia for work purposes. That's why we went there. We went there to maybe, you know, just save a bit of money, figure out what we wanted to do, and then come back. I landed a job in Estonia after about 5 months of being there. So in that time, I was, you know, helping out with my partner's family business and all that stuff. And that's when I did, like, for instance, farming and stuff, okay. Which was amazing. Like just
oh,
doing.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that at all that you did.
Yeah, I've never done farm work before, and it was a very isolated place. This farm and very disconnected from the world. I think it was good for me. It's good. I got to say this just on a side note. Good physical work where there's no distractions, no connections to internet or any of that crap. Just good old-fashioned hard work where you graft every day is good for the soul, and everyone Definitely. Needs to do that once in a while. You know, if not that, then you know, for instance, what you do, like martial arts and stuff, something that trains both your body and your mind and discipline and things like that. It's very important. And you know, people look down their nose, they'll look down on physical work and trades and stuff, but they shouldn't, because it's very good for the soul, and it's just a different form of intelligence entirely.
I couldn't agree more. That's one of the main reasons why, you know, I exercise and work out every day, or, you know, do martial arts, is because it's a chance to, you know, get away from the screen, get away from the internet, and really like test yourself, if you get what I mean. It makes, because, you know, all day every day you're worrying about performance, numbers, you know, people's opinions and stuff, and then when it's just you and the weight, or you know, and you're doing martial arts or something, it's just you and your own thoughts and your own, you can control your own actions. And having that sort of test as well, that physical test, it does a lot for you mentally. Do you know what I mean?
I truly believe once you get to that point where you don't care what people think, and you see your time as sacred. I mean, okay, this is going into my own beliefs, but I honestly believe if you spend time alone, like you said, to be within your thoughts, like a lot of people try to get away from it. It's always about distractions. I need to occupy my mind. I need to watch this thing. I need to do this thing. You know, they never just sit with their thoughts. And you know, I often will do this. I'll go for like a walk in my local park or in the forest or whatever, and you'd be amazed what comes to you. in that time when you're just kind of giving your mind some room to breathe and think, and like you won't even be consciously thinking, things will just come to you. We need that as human beings. It's very important. Like, people laugh at things like being mindful and, you know, things like yoga and
meditation, things like
yeah,
that.
but it's all important. It's all necessary. And, you know, once you start delving into that, you know, I mean, like, for me, the last year and a half has been very formative for me, and I've changed a lot during that time. And I think one of the biggest things, like I said, is not caring about what people think, because that's their thoughts. Why would I occupy my time and energy associating with the thoughts of other people and what they project onto you? I think the power balance between positivity and negativity is a big thing as well. You know, I mean, you need to be the two things that I aim for is to be around positive people, and ideally to be around people that are more intelligent than me. You know, it's like that saying,
that's a big
I
one.
want to be the stupidest person in the room, because I'll always be learning. If you're the smartest person in the room, there's a problem.
Yeah,
get out of that
room. There's a saying, and it's like, or just something that I've read once, and it's like, intelligent people will be the most intelligent in a room, but very intelligent people will be the least intelligent in a room. And it's like, yeah, it comes to a point where people with like a medium intelligence, they'll look to be sort of like the leader, and they'll just like instruct people, and they don't even know the things that they don't understand. But for an extremely intelligent person, even they understand that there are other things out there to learn, so they'll surround themselves with people who, you know more than them. And that's a true sign of like someone who's on that next level, because if you're learning all the time, at least this is another theory I have, is there's a curve to, especially with martial arts as well, there's a curve to your understanding of a martial art and how much you actually know and how much you think you know, because you come in and obviously you think, oh, I don't know anything, I'm a white belt or whatever. You come in and you're, and then you learn a certain technique. And this what happened when I came into the jiu-jitsu class. I learned a few techniques, and I was like, oh, I'm great now. I'm amazing at this, because I didn't know the other. I didn't know of the other. I didn't even know they existed. You know, I hadn't seen a black belt fight another black belt, so I didn't even know. So it's actually true intelligence is knowing about. True intelligence is knowing about the things that you don't understand and being honest with yourself. Because someone who's in just that middle section, who's learned some things but doesn't know what's further than that, that's the worst place to be. Is
so, like,
someone
your
who
point
thinks
as
they know everything. Yeah.
With that example that you gave, like, so you as a white belt, you stand and watch the two black belts, and then you're like, oh wow, like, I know nothing.
Yeah.
Like, look at all this stuff I
And
don't know.
The best. Yeah. That's the best feeling to have, is the feeling of knowing nothing. It's
right.
the most productive feeling to have, and that's why I think extremely intelligent people, that's where I think they look to be most of the time. They look to be, at all times, you should be a white belt watching two black belts fight, I believe, at all times.
Great analogy. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Sorry, we got off track there, but I just wanted to it's good, because things like discipline and working with your hands are things that I very much believe in. So it's good to.
It's different. I don't know where this concept of I mean, it's all to do with elitism and ego at the end of the day. But intelligence comes in many different forms. Like, you know, for instance, trades, people working on cars, building things with their hands. I just see that as a different form of intelligence. Yeah. You know what I mean? You still think with your mind. Do you know what I mean? It's just because you're not sitting there thinking about philosophy or science or math doesn't mean that you're not intelligent. You know, for instance, many of those people that tend to be in those higher, what was considered like higher levels of society, let's put it, they tend to be really crap at like really obvious commonsensical things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think, like you said, like someone who is truly intelligent, who's ideally pushed away their ego. I think it's the death of the ego is a very important thing. You need to eliminate your ego, because ego is what I think prevents us from achieving our potential, because it's when you start getting caught up in, well, what people think, your estimations of yourself, because you'll start putting limits upon yourself or allowing others to put limits upon you. And that's just not realistic. You know, there are no limits. As a human being, there are never any limits. This whole experience is about testing oneself. How far can I push myself? What can I achieve? The journey never ends. It never ends.
Ego is the thing that holds a lot of people back, because it's easier, you know, the middle band that I was talking about, the middle band where it's like you think you know a lot and you're naive to what's above you, right? You're a blue belt and you're naive to the black belt techniques. A lot of that, even if they understand that there's techniques further than their understanding and things that are further than their understanding, ego is what holds people back, because it's easier to remain in that. It's more comfortable and easier to remain in that mindset of I know everything and I don't need to learn anything else. It's easier to stay there than it is to come to terms with yourself and defeat your own ego and actually realize and be honest with yourself that you don't actually know things, because that's a hard thing to, that hurts, doesn't it? When you're honest with yourself and you say, actually, I'm not that good at this. That's difficult. You know,
it shouldn't be like that though, because in like my lives and stuff, people will be like, oh, how did you get so good at guitar? I wish I could play guitar that well. And it's like, you just have to work hard. You know, everyone starts as a beginner. You know, everyone starts as not knowing a thing. I mean, Jesus, I couldn't play guitar properly for at least a year and a half. I remember recording a video of myself, right? Someone recorded like a video of me playing some Nirvana or something. It's like 6 months into playing the guitar. And then I watched the video back like 2 years later and I was like, Jesus, the guitar's out of tune. Like, how did I not hear that? And it's always progression. Of course I wouldn't have heard that, because I was learning. I had no idea like about how to tune a guitar or how it should sound, or you know what I mean? And
I bet at the time when you recorded that video and watched it back, it probably sounded right to you, didn't it? It probably sounded all right. Like you probably thought when you recorded it and played the song,
I can't remember, but maybe. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think the knowledge of. I just recorded it because it's the novelty of recording it. Like, don't forget, this was back in the day when like camera phones were like a new thing. So it's like, oh, cool, we can record it. I mean, the quality would be terrible, but hey, cool, you know.
No, absolutely,
yeah, I get your point. I get your point. Yeah, it's like. Yeah, I think it's like every time you acquire a new knowledge level, it defeats the previous level, and you know it negates it.
Yeah,
but
you learn you didn't actually know as much as you thought you did before, which I think is really interesting, because it's always building.
Yes, and that never stops. I don't believe that ever stops. You know, I think that you're just different. Yeah, I think you just have to do the best you can in the moment. You know what I mean? You can't, and like too many people look back and be like, oh, I was so dumb. I didn't know this. I didn't know that. And it's like, yeah, but as long as you did the best in that moment, then that's all that matters.
Yeah.
You know, and your best won't be the same every single day. You know, some days you'll be at the top of your game, peak performance. Other days, maybe not so much, but you can't punish yourself because of that. You've got to just make sure you're doing your best and putting your heart and soul into it. And then you can always kind of be happy in the knowledge that you always delivered. I think that the bigger regret that most people will have is they just didn't put effort into it, or they didn't try. But take the example of TikTok, right? When you first told me about TikTok, I was just like, oh no, that's silly. Like I shouldn't do that. Why? Why shouldn't I do that?
Yeah.
Why not? Why not? And until I've tried it and I know, why not? You know, there is no why not. You got to try it. You know, and I tried it twice, and then now it's worked. You know, and then sometimes there's other things like, okay, Instagram Reels. You were trying to get me to do that, and I was just like, oh, this is silly. Like, why would anyone do this? I tried it. It didn't really work, but at least I tried it. At least I learned, like, okay, maybe TikTok is the better thing for this. You know, Instagram Reels only kind of really works for like dancers or whatever. You know,
I've found the complete for me though. It depends on the person, because I found the complete opposite. My TikTok is dead. Like it just doesn't like no one sees it and anything. It just doesn't work. I don't know if I'm shadow banned or something like that. But
No, I tell you your problem.
Instagram Reels for me, I get thousands on there now, thousands of views. I'm somehow getting it. I've somehow like leveled up into the system where I'm actually getting put in front of other people outside of my followers. Well, I don't know how as well. It seems to be. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go on. I interrupt.
I was going to say, it seems to be anytime if it's a video of me punching and kicking the punching bag, it goes through. But anything else, like if I'm doing like weightlifting or just kicking the air or just doing like practicing or warming up or something, it doesn't get picked up. It's just whenever I'm kicking and punching the bag, that's when it goes through. It's really strange. Really, really strange.
I think for TikTok, this is what I've noticed. It's all about two things. One, how you use your hashtags. Yeah. Very specific hashtags you got to use. Two, and more importantly, relatability.
Yeah.
So with what you do, your punching and kicking ones, they're interesting for a couple of reasons. One, progression. Like, for instance, I lightly follow your stuff. Like, I obviously don't follow it all the time because I just don't have the time. But one thing I do notice is that like your kicking and punching has gotten a lot better over the last year. You can see the progression. Yeah. Even if you dip in and out and you don't watch every single video, you can still see it. People like stories, people like transformations in fitness. You know this as well as I do. It's about that. And I think that there's a lot of things you could do with it that would work. I think it's just trial and error, as always. You know what I mean? You just got to keep trying different things until something sticks. Like even me with TikTok, 5,000 followers sounds like a lot, right? I'm still figuring it out. I'd say 1 in every 10 videos probably gets over 1,000. The rest, struggle to get to like 200. So it's all kind of about trial and error and trying to figure out who you are, what you have to offer. You know what I mean? Everyone has something to offer, but it's kind of trying to figure out what is this channel going to be? What is it going to evolve into? And I think that is just a process. Do you know what I mean? And these things don't happen overnight. It takes time. Like that, you'll discover that with your brand that you have now. It's a new thing. You'll try different things with it. Some things you won't do again. Some things you'll replicate. You'll figure it out through time. I mean, definitely. Just to jump ahead, I know you wanted to talk about the podcast later, but I'll just briefly mention it now. Same thing for me. When I started that, I had an idea of what it would be, and it still is that, but it's changed a lot. Like, for example, when I do my research and I do my questions, in the beginning, I used to use that as like my holy grail. Like I stick to that like it's the most important thing ever. Now, sometimes I don't even ask questions from there. I just ad-lib a lot of it. And that, I think, comes through the process. Keep doing it. You get more confident, and eventually you kind of find your footing. And, but it's like the whole point of most of our conversation. It's always about learning and trying different things and going with the flow.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so glad I guess I had an action in sort of pushing you to get onto TikTok. I'm so glad I did that, because now it's almost like the tables have turned, where it's you're like almost teaching me. So it's actually worked out really well for me, because now I have like almost like you're mentoring me, on how to do things. And you're literally crushing it as well. Like I go on there a lot and I see you on there, and it's amazing to see. Admittedly, I don't with my own stuff, I don't like try that. I don't, you talk, you make specific things for that. I just set the phone up and hit the bag and then upload it. I just sort of like use it as like a video dump pretty much.
We have different goals.
Yeah, definitely.
That's the thing. If you were taking it seriously, like you wanted it to bang, I know you would make it happen, because you've done it before. You've had videos that have gone, because you know how it works. Like TikTok, at the end of the day, it's like anything else. There's a process. Once you figure it out, you've got it. And with me, look, realistically, if I wanted all my YouTube and TikTok and everything to just get views right now and to everything, to pop off, I could do it, but it would mean sacrificing.
But at what cost? Exactly.
Yeah,
do
you know what I mean? I wouldn't be doing what I love. I would just be doing what the audience wants. And it is important to consider what your audience wants, but you don't want to get stuck in a position where you're not doing what you love, because that's how people get burnt out, you know? There's so many creators that, you know what I mean? They get to the top, but then they just find themselves doing what they hate. And then I don't know, they walk away from it, or they lose followers, whatever, you know? You've got to be true and authentic to yourself and do what you enjoy. And you can't feel bad about it. Like with you, for example, like, don't ever feel bad about it, dude. As long as what you're doing makes you happy, that's all that matters.
Sure, yeah. My main goal now is just to document my progress. That's my main goal now, and that's the same as what I'm doing here. I'm just documenting, you know, my relationship with you and your thoughts now and my thoughts now, which is
when I first properly gave YouTube a go back in 2019 when we met, and you were giving me advice and stuff. The first thing that you said when I was talking, because I was obsessed with numbers back then. And you said, look, even if it doesn't work out, you've got what is essentially like a time capsule, a video diary of who you are right now. And that will be invaluable. You can look back at that in the future and look back at your progress and see how you've developed as a human being and all of that. And I was like, yeah. So there's always going to be something of value to it, even if it doesn't take off and we don't become big superstars or whatever. Like, we've got that. There's always something of value to be had.
Yeah, even if it's like 0 views, thousands of dislikes, and so much hate. Worst case scenario, you have like a daily or weekly diary of your whole life. Like in preparation for this, I watched your moving back to the UK video when you were moving back from Estonia, and you've changed so much. I didn't even like really notice it from just like, dipping in and out of your stuff since then, but you've changed so much. I was going to recommend to you after this that you need to go back and watch that, because you've changed.
I know what you mean. Those early vlogs. I didn't know how to talk to the camera. I think
it was crazy to me, because back then I even thought, oh, you're good at talking to the camera, and now I'm looking back and I'm like, it's nothing to be ashamed about. It's just because you've learned so much in that time, but it's like night and day.
It's awkward.
It really is.
Like when you first start doing these things, anything, it's always awkward in the beginning. I think this whole medium of talking to cameras, people worry too much. That's the issue. You need to kind of just have a very clear idea of what you want to do and just run with it. I remember in the very beginning, those first couple of vlogs, I was just like, oh, how do I talk? Like, should I be like, hey guys? Or should I be like, a typical YouTuber, like, hey guys, welcome to this video? Or should I just be a bit more like me? Should I be quiet? Should I be boisterous? I just didn't know. I was like, and then I just kind of realized I just need to be myself and just roll with it. So I tried not to think about it. And look, I'll still say to this day, they are still awkward as hell. But I then became more and more confident. And now I don't even think about it. I just stick the camera on and it's like, boom, let's get rolling. Yeah. But it's progress. All things, same thing. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You start here and you get to here. But that process is gradual.
Yeah, and you get knocked back and... you pause for years or months or weeks, and it feels like you're not going anywhere. And then all of a sudden, you try something new and it works.
Mate. The amount of frustration I have sometimes, like, don't get me wrong, I don't think about the numbers anymore like I did. I mean, everyone pays attention to the numbers.
Everyone cares about numbers. It's just if you base your happiness on the numbers, that's the main
exactly
thing.
Exactly. But like every now and again, I get a bit frustrated. Like, for instance, YouTube has taken a bit of a side seat for me now. Like, I still do it, but I don't do it as much. There was a point where I was uploading every day, sometimes several times a day.
Yeah.
Now I've got 3 YouTube channels. So my second channel and my third channel are clips channels. So my second channel is like where all my shorts go. It's basically Christian Reeve shorts. Like, I actually changed it recently.
Yeah.
And then my third channel is podcast clips, both shorts and long form clips. So there's a purpose, it's branding, but they never get any views really. Like, the shorts do, but the long form clips don't. But my head isn't really there. I'm just like, this needs to be there for the podcast. There's, and the shorts is there as just like, because why wouldn't you have it? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But with the main channel, I've dropped it really. I've dropped it a lot. Like you have the podcast, occasionally music originals that I write and upload there. Once in a blue moon, I do covers, but I tend to just do those on TikTok. And I do other little things, like I started doing food reviews recently.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm a big fan of those. I've really been enjoying those.
So I do them now and again, yeah. And I think with the main channel, what I've realized is that like YouTube is a different ball game entirely, and I think that YouTube only really works when you've built up a following, if that makes sense. So like either elsewhere or you have that, you know, we've talked about this before, that one video. Or what's that one video, you know? And it's like, it just hasn't happened for me on YouTube. But there's no reason why it shouldn't. I just think that it's a different game. And I think that, you know, I have many goals in life. Like I want to be a professional musician, professional actor, voice actor, podcaster, content creator. I want to do many things. And that's pretty unusual because most people just want to stick to one thing or a couple of things. I want to do everything because I love to create. That's my thing. Sure, I'd love YouTube to work. And what my point with this is that I've been stuck just under 700 for like ages. And people were always like, how many do you need to get monetized? And, you know, all that. And it's like, I need like, what was it, 4K watch hours, 1,000 subscribers, you know, the same old jug.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that stuff will happen. But I think what I've noticed is all the major content creators, it's the same thing. They've probably been going for years. And then they have that blow up, and then everyone's like, "Oh wow, overnight success!" And it's like, it's not an overnight success.
It's such a grind. It's such a grind. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just those people didn't give up. There was plenty of people that did it and then gave up. You can't give up. You give up, it's like the lottery. You got to be in it to win it. You stop playing the lottery, well, you're not going to win it, are you?
It is very much like the lottery. That's because you people think it's an easy thing to do because you only hear the success stories. You only hear the you know, KSI did this, or oh, look how big the Sidemen are now, or just whoever you're looking at.
That's a good example. Take KSI. Think about how many years it took him to get just to like where he got views. I think it was a good 3 years between 2010 to 2013 before he was even getting like noticed.
But think of how many KSIs are out there who didn't make it, who you just don't hear about, because you're thinking, oh, KSI, that's one person out of one person, so that's 100% it's going to work. Like I can definitely just follow his model and, you know, do exactly what he's done. But think of how many that you don't see. You don't see the failures.
He moved with the times as well. You notice his content's changed a lot over the years. Yeah. Many people don't move with the times, or you got me. What do you know? When I saw my family recently, I can't remember. I think it might have been my mum actually that said this, but she said that I always have my finger on the pulse of what's going on. And I knew what she meant because, like, even when I look at look, I'm 28 now, right? So when I look at like teenagers and like all the crazy stuff they're doing, a lot of it I don't get, right? Yeah. But I remember being a teenager. It wasn't that long ago. And I still kind of know what's going on. I still understand it to some degree. There's a lot I don't understand, but there's a lot I do understand. And I think I'm always aware. And I think you've got to, that's the difference between being successful and not being successful, is you've got to be aware of what's going on and move with it. You can't resist it. You can't be stuck in the past. You know what I mean? Unless you're like specifically like a retro vintage type of person, that's a bit different. Yeah. But you know, if you are trying to kind of make it with these sort of things, I mean, okay, look, I know I'm sort of speaking as though I've already made it when I haven't, but I'm just going off what I've seen successful content creators do and what they say about it. They all say the same thing all the time. Like KSI says it. I think PewDiePie even said it. Like they all started like from nowhere and it took them years and it was like a progressive thing. Like there's a video, I highly recommend anyone that's listening, if you've got YouTube, just go check it out. It's, I think it's 10 years on YouTube or something. PewDiePie did. He did a video in 2020 about this.
Okay. And
there's literally a bit where he has like a graph where he shows you all the peak points of his channel. So it'd be like, you know, 2011, 2012, then 2014, 2015, and he shows you all the peaks. So it's kind of like always kind of up and down, but there's like particular peak points where, you know, something big would have happened, and that's the reality, I think, of a lot of content creators is that trajectory. Like, if you take my YouTube, like when I compared the stats with Social Blade and I started looking at how my channel's doing, there is that steady progression. It's like it's figured out this is where it's likely to go unless there's a major change or like a major shift of some description. But you can't account for those shifts. You either have your steady trajectory, and then because of the nature of what we do, something can happen.
Yeah. No, and people
someone
think,
randomly shares you.
People think if something gets a lot of views, they think it's just like that's the new baseline. Like you're just going to be at that level for good now.
No.
But we both know, and I've seen it in people like, from, where I live and stuff. I've seen people like go viral, and then and then once it goes viral, it sort of comes back down to a baseline, and you've only made a little bit of progress from where you are before. Like for me, example, that my 110k, I think it's got now, views. It added like 9. I don't continuously get 110k views since then. Do you know what I mean? It didn't actually progress me that much. But do you get what I mean about that? About the, you have a blip and then you sort of come back down to a baseline. I'm sure you've experienced it in your own on socials as well. You'll get like a big spike, and then you'll come back down to like a bit of normality again, but it'll be slightly above. And it's almost like steps just going upwards. It will look like if you like plotted it out.
I had a video on my TikTok that got 700k, and that obviously pushed me to over 1,000.
Wait, sorry, 700k?
Yeah, it's kind of nuts.
Oh my god!
Fair enough. You remember what I said earlier about the relatability thing? The reason that it did well was because basically it was about the Royal Mail scam text message thing.
Oh, I remember now. Yeah. Okay.
Everyone was getting them at that point, like from multiple sources, like DHS or DHP or whatever it's called, Lloyd's Bank. And it just turns out that everyone had gotten this scam at the same time, and I just happened to post a mini clip from it. And here's the thing: that was part of a longer video that I did on my second channel, and I just decided to clip it up for the fun of it, and it was terrible. It was filmed badly. It was just trash, but that trash got 700k views because it was relatable. But to your point about the dip, obviously I was gaining like crazy followers, crazy comments. It pushed me up. It really bolstered me. But yeah, it evens out, and then you get like a baseline to work with. And now I've kind of learned to use the lives as a tool for showcasing like who I am and what I do. And I do a mixture of different things. So I do song request streams where I like play on guitar and accept song requests, or I play my original songs, and people seem to dig that. I also do a lot of streams where I just stick on tunes in the background and just chat to people, and people really dig those vibes. Or I just sit and chat. But I use it as a tool, and it actually helps to gain a lot of followers. And to just, I've built a community with it. Obviously you've been part of my Discord community. That's really helped that community, and now we like do stuff together in that community as well. So it's my what I wanted to say with regards to your point is that a lot of creators miss the bigger picture. Your videos will go viral, they'll get a lot of views here and there, but it's important what you do with that. Like, I think it's wrong to try to get every video to like go viral. I think that's the wrong approach. I think it's a better idea to try to build a brand, build a community, build something long term. Because let's be real, when you're a creator, you want people to subscribe to you that care about you. Yeah. Who cares if you have 1 million subscribers? Not all of 1 million of those people are going to be watching you. Yeah. Maybe 100k if you're lucky, or if you've got 10k followers, 500 of those people check you out. That's the reality. Like I've got 5,000 followers on TikTok. How many of those actually check out my videos? Well, the average I've seen views wise per video is about 200 views. So it's like a minute interest. Yeah. And I think that's the goal. You got to use it to turn into other things. Like so many of the people I follow on TikTok that are, they're doing crazy numbers. They've got 100k or whatever, right? They all have bigger goals. They want to be actors, musicians. They've got bigger goals in life. Like TikTok is just a thing for them. It's a tool. And it's the same for me. I love TikTok. It's fun, but it's a tool for me. It's to try to help me.
Yeah, you don't want it to be like you don't want to be on TikTok like as a career, do you? You want it to be almost like a jumping off point.
I'm not. Look, I will always do stuff like this.
Yeah.
Even if I become a successful actor and musician, I will still try and find the time to do YouTube and TikTok because I love doing it. That's never going to change. But yeah, I don't know necessarily that I would do it full time. I'm not ruling it out though. I'm not saying.
Yeah, no, of course.
You know what I mean? I'm not trying to belittle people that do it full time. I think you got to roll with what works for you. You know, I'm just saying that for me, I've identified that the things I really love doing are acting, music, and podcasting and like presenting. Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of. I thought a lot about maybe I could go into TV or radio or whatever, you know, and I've had comments that have reaffirmed that. And I know I said before that I don't really care about what people think, but it's interesting when those thoughts start coming into my head and then sometimes people say those exact things, it makes me think maybe there's something to this. Even if you take the most successful people, like, take your Logan Pauls and your KSIs. Logan Paul is a better example. That guy, no matter what you think about him, right? I think he's really redeemed himself in the last couple of years. I'll be honest.
I actually think his fight's tonight, actually, isn't it, with Floyd? Yeah. I
think that he made a big mistake. He's a young rich kid, way famous at a time when in your formative, you're just a kid, 21, 22, you're a kid. You know, you don't become a full adult until you're much older. You know, I can vouch for that. Trust me.
Yeah.
He was a kid, he made some mistakes. He learned from them. Now, he's a business guy. He's a smart businessman.
Yeah.
He recently appeared at WWE's WrestleMania, which for wrestling fans is like the equivalent of like Super Bowl. It's huge.
Yeah.
He went there, he did some good business. He knows that people hate him, right? So he played a bad guy. I mean, he kind of played like a neutral guy, but then he became, you know, he got like a stunner from this guy called Kevin Owens. Like
he got like slammed, didn't he?
Yeah. But here's the thing: they would have presented that idea to him and said, "This is what we want to do," and he agreed to it. He was like, "Yeah, I'll go for that," and that's exactly what he should have done. Smart business move. Yeah. Everyone says this fight with Floyd Mayweather, oh my god, it's ridiculous. He don't care.
People are talking about it. That's the point. Yeah.
People are talking about it. Yeah. Like people are missing the point. It doesn't fucking matter in Logan Paul world. He's W after W after W right now.
Yeah.
You know, he's killing it, and it's smart business. Even Jake Paul. Like as much as I don't like that guy, do you know what? He sure knows how to put interest into a fight. I tell you what, if he was in the wrestling business or MMA or something, he would make a killing. You know, he really would, because he knows how to play the bad guy and get people riled up. He's brilliant. You know, it's a shame he's got that attitude, like that's really him. But
I don't know if it is. I really don't know if it is. I don't know. I don't know anymore.
It is.
It's gone so far that I honestly think it's
people know
trying to be like a McGregor. He's trying to be like a trash talker and a McGregor. I'm pretty sure.
Don't get me wrong.
I'm not invested in either of them, so I don't know about their personal life or what they're like. But
people that know him personally and know Logan Paul personally, you hear a lot of bad things about Jake Paul compared to Logan Paul. I'm the same as you. I'm not massively invested in them. I look at them from an outsider's perspective inwards. I think as businessmen, they're both very, very intelligent and they really know what they're doing. Like, you know, they've evolved with the times, and it goes to my wider point about, you know, building a brand. Same with KSI, same deal. You know what I mean? People are like, oh, I wish you would do the stuff he did like 5 or 6 years ago. If he did the stuff he did 5 or 6 years ago, it would A, be weird, just because he's older, and B, it's stupid. Like, he's
not in the same place anymore, is he? So.
Yeah, he's shown that he's a good musician, and he's interesting, and he's used that, and he might have something there, you know, and he's been pretty good at boxing. He's shown that he's got like a good attitude, dedication to it. He's passionate about it. It's interesting, but I think he's still been very true to what he does. He still does YouTube in despite of everything, and I'm the same. Like, it doesn't matter what I do in life, I'll always still want to create content like I do now as well, because it's it's the ease of it, it's the fun aspect of it, you know, like nothing can ever replace that. Like acting, you know, I've done professional acting before. It's a different medium. It's different. It's not the same thing, you know. And people think like, oh yeah, if you do this, you can do that. It's different. Yeah, I mean, you can approach it with the same conviction and passion and attitude, but you still have to learn from scratch. That's why I always say, like, when people say, "Oh, are you an actor?" I say, "I'm an aspiring actor," because I've never had professional lessons. I've never done what you need to do. As far as I'm concerned, until I do that and I start getting like paid work, I can't. I think it's even ambitious to say amateur at this stage, and that's just my personal opinion. But
you've had experience though, because this is a good segue, sort of linking Estonia and acting, because I know you've done you know, some roles within short films and stuff like that, but this is something that I really wanted to talk to you about. A while ago, you told me and Aaron that you were in a film called TENET or something like that, and I was TENET, and that's the thing at the time, because I hadn't heard of it at the time, and you were like, I said, a new Christopher Nolan film, TENET was, I have no idea what this is about, and then comes out big massive blockbuster, and obviously like I didn't spot you in it, but have you seen the film? First off, have you seen the film?
Yes.
Yeah. What did you think of the film first off?
Good film. Very kind of Inception vibe. You know, you need to watch it multiple times.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I dug it. I thought it was a cool film.
Yeah. Good so film. For the people that don't know, so you were what were you, an extra in the film? Because when I was watching it,
there was like 4 weeks of filming, so I was in the beginning shots as a steward, because there's like an opening scene where it's like they're in like an amphitheater type thing, and I'm dressed in like full, you know, steward gear, so you can see me walking around. There's also a scene where the SWAT team comes running in, and I'm like hiding behind a bar or some shit.
Really?
And there was also some scenes which I don't think actually made it to the final cut, where I was just it's basically Robert Pattinson driving in the streets of Estonia and in Tallinn, and we were walking up and down this street for like a week, doing those scenes.
I didn't know about you were in the opera theatre scene then at the start, because I didn't know that, because when I was watching it, I was thinking, I wonder what bit Christian's in.
It was cool. And then it was cool.
I noticed that in the car chase that you're talking about, they said, I think they were listening to something on the radio, and they said, oh, are they speaking Estonian or are they speaking backwards or something like that? So I was like, oh, this is the bit that's set in Estonia. But that's really interesting. So how did you how did that come about? How did that come about?
There's a lot more set in Estonia than you think, actually. I was actually surprised, before I answer your question, like, one of the biggest things that I thought was really cool is they actually mention Estonia in the film. And they say they're going to that location and stuff. Like, for instance, that bit at the beginning, that's supposed to be Ukraine. It's actually Estonia. But it's supposed to be this like opera house in Ukraine, and like people in Ukraine were just laughing at that, because it's like the actual place is like totally different. But how did it come about? So in Estonia, there's like this acting group on Facebook, right, where they post like everything, like short films, commercials, whatever. Like Estonia is a very small country, so like everyone, if you do films or commercials or whatever, you always see the same faces quite often. And TENET was the same, but the difference with TENET was that there was this company that was working in connection with the TENET production team. So it was an Estonian production team working with the English or American production team, and they just had a big campaign, basically trying to get as many people as possible on board. And it was really easy. You know, I had to kind of go to some random warehouse they had and try on a bunch of clothes, and I didn't have to audition, obviously, because it was an extra as well, but they tried different things and whatnot, and then they kind of decided on the look they were going. I was very lucky that I got that role. That was a lot of fun, because the worst role to have as far as an extra was concerned was sitting in the amphitheater just doing nothing. We at least got to kind of there was about 15 or 20 of us. It was all like young lads dressed in like really posh attire. It was fun. And yeah, like I said, like that was like 2 or 3 weeks of filming, and then the other week was just bystander clothes, walking in the streets of Tallinn.
Wow.
But yeah, basically, I just applied for it and I got it, and yeah, it was interesting. Like just every day, going there early in the morning. You got breakfast, then you did like your scenes and stuff, then had for lunch and stuff, and then they'd normally provide you with something at the end of the day as well. Lots of waiting around. Extras work is, if you're working on a movie, especially action movies, it takes forever. Like we had 16, 17-hour days, and the crew had even longer. I felt really bad for them. Yeah. It was not the one. I got to see some pretty cool stuff. I got to see a lot of action scenes with what's his name? David John Washington. I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
Denzel Washington's kid, basically.
Yeah.
I got to see him smash in the door and paraglide from a window and stuff. So that was pretty badass.
Oh wow.
And I saw all the stuff like driving around the car in the streets of Tallinn and stuff. So that was interesting. Saw Robin Pattinson. So that was cool.
Did you get to meet any of the cast or any? You didn't get to. They didn't speak to you.
You know what? I saw. This was really cool. I saw that. I think her name's Elizabeth Debicki. The really tall actress, the very tall, very beautiful lady.
Yeah.
I saw her coming out of her trailer. It was really weird. We were walking past, and she came out of her trailer, and she's got her hair done and stuff like that. And we just like looked at each other, and I just didn't know what to say. I was just like.
Oh wow!
I kept walking. I was just like, wow, because when you see a woman that's just like so unbelievably beautiful, and you just don't know what to say. She's a celebrity as well, and I don't get like phased when I see celebrities because they're just people. But it is always still kind of cool when you see them. It's like, oh, cool. I've seen you on TV.
And I always find if you see someone in real life, they never look like the same. Do you know what I mean? Like they never look like what you expect them to look like.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, because I saw the guy who I can't remember his name, but he's a very famous English actor, and he plays the bad guy in the movie.
Kenneth Branagh. Is it Kenneth Branagh?
Branagh, yeah. So he's a fantastic actor, and he was brilliant in that movie, by the way. Like, solid casting choice for him as the villain, and great psychology. But anyway, he was shorter than I imagined. And it doesn't matter, like who cares?
I did think he looked short in the film, but I thought it was because he was standing next to the female lead, tall one. But she is very tall. Yeah,
tall. She's like in real life, legit. I'd say at least 6'3". Gotta be, maybe more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Kenneth Branagh is about 5'9", 5'10", maybe. Yeah. I think I would be taller than him just. Because I think I'm 5'11" or 6'4" or something. I don't know. I've never actually bothered to get that checked, but it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. But anyway, yeah. Wow. Interesting experience.
That is very interesting.
Because a lot of the time these days I'm very like relaxed towards these things. I just kind of see it as like, oh, that's a thing that happened. But I used to get like really excited about those sorts of things. I'd be like, oh wow. But when you actually go and do it, you realize, oh, it's just like anything else. There's a whole process to this. Yeah. Everyone has a job. Everyone does their thing. Yeah, it's not as glamorous as you think. Like particularly action movies, because I tell you what, action movies are boring as hell because you're just doing the same scene over and over and over. And like most of it was just us sitting around talking. I'll be honest. You know what I mean? Just don't.
Well, what were you waiting for? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, just for them to film stuff or to use us because they didn't always use us in scenes.
Okay.
And like. Here's a really weird thing as well. There was a guy that was working on the American/English production crew who I went to school with.
Really?
Small world.
Wow.
I just walked up to him and I was like, "Hey, Dan," and he was like, "Hey." It was really weird. Wow. And we just started talking about school days, and it was nice. It was nice to see someone
familiar face
that I hadn't seen in over 10 years, maybe more, and also just familiar face. That was cool. That was very weird. He was working as like a painter on the set or something like that. Oh, he told me some cool stuff. So apparently, like Nolan was very annoying with how he'd do things. So like he told me that one day they told him to set up this thing on the stage, which took about an hour to do, and they'd been asked to set it up and then deconstruct it and then set it up again and then deconstruct it, and they never actually used it. But this is how on a whim Christopher Nolan is. Like he'll be like, we're filming this now, and he'll do it for like an hour and a half, and then he just change his mind and go, no, now we're doing this, and then go back to the thing he was doing before, and then forward and then back. That's because that's the thing. You didn't need to have us extras there. They were just we were there most days. I'd say 70-80% of the time we were just standing around waiting.
Oh, really?
And the remaining 20% we actually did stuff. Yeah, that's what I mean.
He's a great director, but I've heard he's very particular and very hard to work with. I've heard. Did you see that news story about he's not allowed? He doesn't allow sitting down or something. You're not allowed to. The actors aren't allowed to sit down on set.
I don't want to throw
like
him under the bus, but I got to say that like we didn't have any seating areas. Like there were places to sit in this place because it's an amphitheater.
Yeah.
But most of us were just sitting on the floor or laying on the floor or whatever. Like we had our little areas, but yeah, we were mostly just sitting on the floor. There wasn't anywhere to sit.
Great director, but I've heard that he is difficult to work with, and
yeah, there was a lot of issues there. I can't obviously say them, I think, for contractual reasons, but I mean, it's all part of the movie process. Like it's different directors are different ways. I think, like in fairness to him, I think the what he's trying to do is to save time. So by having the people on hand ready to go is better than, you know what I mean, saving it all for one day and then, do you know what I mean? Like people pull out, people they waste time, they muck around and stuff. If you just got everyone there every day, it just makes things easier and you can shift things around. And like he has his own process and stuff. And like when you see the final product, they did a good job. You know,
at the end of the day, it's a business, so you know it's going to be difficult to get it planned down to a T, definitely. But you know,
I think the fact that every movie he releases becomes a big blockbuster hit kind of says it all, really, doesn't it? It's
maybe he's allowed to act the way he does. Maybe it's just.
Yeah, I mean, look. Again, there's not like anything bad on the sets. No one is like miserable. Like the only thing I would say is that everyone's pretty overworked. It's a lot of work, but then that's the same on so many other movie sets. Like it's not specific to him. It's just like it depends on the director and at their discretion. Do you know what I mean? And like his style is just very intensive, but I think that it gets results, and I think it gets the best of the actors and everyone involved. And you need to be that strict. You need to be like that. I think that, you know, one of the biggest problems that he was having with people in the amphitheater was that they were not listening. They were not doing as they were told. So like, a good example would be that they were supposed to have this thing where all the people were like, you know, gassed in the amphitheater and their eyes are shut. And if you look very closely in those scenes, you can see like some people with their eyes open, like when they shouldn't be and stuff. And he told them like so many times, just shut your eyes, just do as you're told, blah, 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 blah. But the thing is, so many people there, they were just bystanders, like they weren't actors. They were people off the street, for real. And what can you do? You know, and like it was unbearable.
It must have been frustrating for him to, you know,
it was in the middle of summer.
You could tell it's all real because he doesn't use visual effects all that much, does he? So they were all real people in there, and it must have been very frustrating just to, you know, shut your eyes, everyone, and people just weren't doing it as well. No, I can understand.
No, I totally agree. And it was frustrating for me to see as well, because it's you don't have to shut your eyes for that long. It's like we're talking like 5-10 minutes, and then you go back and
we're talking about shutting our eyes. Like it's the easiest day of work you could possibly ask for.
I think it's just people were so like people have weird attitudes. Like, I'll give you an example, right? This is a different scene, but there was a scene that I told you about where we were walking up and down the street, right? And we were paired with different people when we would do it. So sometimes we'd be on our own walking, and like we would just backdrop. Like we weren't even necessarily going to be seen on camera.
Yeah.
But here's like the attitudes of people. So there was this woman, this Asian lady, and I'm surprised I've never done a story time about this actually, but maybe I'll do it one time. But you're getting exclusive here.
Yeah, exclusive
basically,
scoop. Yeah.
We were walking up and down this road. It's boiling, middle of summer. This whole road is closed off, and it's a very important road in Tallinn. Like Tallinn's a small city anyway, but it was very disruptive.
Yeah.
And it was a big chunk of road that they closed off. And yeah, like I said, we were there for like 3-4 days of filming, walking up and down this street, and occasionally I get paired with this Asian lady, and she was like, she was obsessed with being seen on camera.
Oh, right.
And
okay.
Right. So like we're walking on the side of the road, and she's like, "Oh no, I need to be on the left-hand side so I can be seen." And it's like, I didn't say it because I'm not rude, but it started to annoy me. And I said to other people, I was like, the chances of even getting seen anyway are like slim to none. These won't even be used, and I'm pretty sure they weren't even used in the final shots, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. They just need people to like populate the area just in case.
Literally, because the scene that we're talking about was in the movie, but you can't see it. It's basically when
they have the fire engine, right, and they're driving down the road, and there's like a car chase.
Yeah, it's that, but it's before they get on the motorway. So it's like Robert Pattinson, and he's talking to someone in the car, and in the backdrop you can sort of see things going past, just buildings, but it's really quick. So that's where we would have been. But if you would have seen us, you would have seen us for like 0.1 of a second.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have mattered. And she's just obsessed with that, and it was just annoying to me. I was like, this is, people like this ruin productions for everyone, because particularly when you're trying to tell them what to do and they won't listen because they're like, oh no, I need to be seen, and it's like, this is just embarrassing. Like, you're here to do a job. Like, because the thing is, we were all paid as well. This was my first one of my first paid acting gigs. I think it might have actually been my first paid acting gig. This was before I even got commercials and everything. So this was like, oh cool. I mean, it wasn't a lot of money. It was like, it was what it was. And funnily enough, I actually took holiday from my actual job to do this.
So you got double paid?
No. Well,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, was it unpaid? Like unpaid leave or?
No, it was paid leave, but
okay.
I got paid like nothing there. So.
Okay.
But yeah, but that's kind of cool, because I would have done it for free anyway, because like it's a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah, definitely.
What I will say is, like, for anyone that wants to be a professional actor, extras work, it's kind of good if you want to kind of get a first time experience and maybe make some connections, be in the right area, but like, it's not a fun experience. Yeah. Unless you like really just love being there. I get it. Like, if it was like Harry Potter, that would be fun, right? But the reality is, it's very long days. It's not a lot of fun to actually do it. And like, for instance, your name doesn't even go in the credits unless you get an on-screen like bit of dialogue. Like, I was so desperate to get a bit of dialogue, even just something as simple as like just one word. I could
like look over there or something. Yeah.
And this is the thing, they took our names as well. I remember them distinctly taking our names. They took our names twice, and I was like, oh, there might be a chance. But I think it was actually more to do with positioning of specific extras. So like, it was consistency in scenes. I think that's what it would have been. Make sure to have this specific extra here because of X, Y, and Z reason. But yeah.
Oh, that is really interesting. It's good. Your first ever, or one of your first paid roles, and it was in TENET, one of the biggest films of last year.
Yeah, it's kind of mad to think about. Yeah, I think they did a good job with that movie as well. Like, internationally speaking, there was a lot of other locations around the world that they used and featured prominently. And a lot of cool. Not what I was expecting as well. Everyone had like a lot of thoughts about that movie, and I think it kind of surprised everyone, but in a good way.
Yeah, no, I definitely. It has its issues, I'd say, but it was definitely it was a great idea, and I would, I'd be open to seeing something else, set in that kind of world as well. I think there's a lot of like potential there. But yeah, we'll move on sort of from acting and Estonia. We'll move just onto the podcast, just as our sort of final point. So, was podcasting always sort of something that you wanted to try, or is it something that you've sort of fallen into?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved listening to podcasts. I think the first one I ever heard was the Ricky Gervais podcast, all the ones he would do, and I just loved the format of it. I thought it was a really cool medium, just in general.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I got to second year or first year of university that I actually started thinking about, oh, hey, it would be really cool to do a podcast. And originally I wanted to do like a wrestling podcast because I've always been a wrestling fan. But one thing that put me off was this idea that I'd have to like constantly cover new topics. Whereas now I think it would have been, and I'm still open to it, by the way. So if anyone wants to do a wrestling podcast with me, hell yeah. But I wouldn't want to set it up for like new stuff because it would just be, it takes too much time to
It would
keep up
almost
to date
become a
with
chore as well if you were forced to sort
Yeah.
of cover things you didn't really care about, or if you didn't, you're sort of fixed to a time schedule then if you need to, cover new matches and things that are happening.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I've tried little things before, like doing reviews in the form of written reviews and stuff, and it's like, this sucks the life out of it. I've even written like articles before for companies like Give Me Sport, remember them?
Yeah.
It's just, it sucks the life out of it.
Yeah.
But I'll be willing to do like old stuff probably, or I don't know. Anyway, besides the point. That was kind of my initial kind of like want, I suppose, and then or desire as far as it pertains to podcasting. But then years later, when I met you, obviously we did the TCJ podcast with Aaron, and I think for a while I'd wanted to do something like that, but I'd never really like sat down and actually thought like, hey, this is the thing I want to do. I just kind of, I don't even remember. Was I the one who pitched the idea? I can't even remember now.
What, for TCJ or
yeah, just... to do a podcast? Was it me?
It was either me or you. It may well have been you.
Remember.
Yeah,
I don't remember, but yeah, I remember it being a kind of like a, whoever suggested it, it was very much a kind of like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we just tried this out? Or what do you think? Like, it wasn't even like a serious like, let's do this, let's make it. It was just that came later. I think when Aaron kind of got his hands on it and started doing like designs and stuff for it, it was like, ooh, maybe this is going to be a real thing,
Yeah.
But originally it was just kind of like, oh, this would be fun. This would be a laugh.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I would say it wasn't until that podcast ended and then I started thinking about doing my own one, but I was very nervous about the prospect because I wasn't sure I could make it interesting. I felt like to have a good podcast, you needed to have like several people on it and you had to have that dynamic and, otherwise there's no point. But then you look at people like Joe Rogan and the format he's set up, and mine is very similar as far as it pertains to, just the podcast interview format.
Yeah, like a one-on-one.
I think once I started doing that, like it's like I said before, like throughout this conversation, it was progression with that. I started it because I figured, well, I didn't want the TCJ podcast to end. It ended, and I was like, okay, but I still want to do this, so I'll set up my podcast.
Did you start just doing episode? You just started with episodes of you just talking to camera. Is that correct, or was it with Dylan?
No.
Yeah.
No. The very first episode is just me.
Yeah.
And I honestly thought that's what the podcast would be. I figured I'd probably have guests at some point, but I figured like the podcast would just be solely just me talking. Yeah. And again, I wasn't sure that it would work very well. And the numbers have kind of been very varied as it pertains to like the single episodes where it's just me talking. Like some of them get some interest, some of them don't. But I think the interview format or several people being on the show is generally makes for a more interesting thing to listen to.
Yeah.
It's just more interesting and more engaging, and you get more out of it. It's surprising. Every time I have a guest on my show, it's completely different. I never know what to expect. The dynamic is always very different, and it's exciting. You never know where it's going to go.
How many interviews do you think you've done, like roughly, or how many episodes have you done? What episode are you on now? Have you stopped counting?
Latest episode is 94.
Yeah. So how many singular ones do you reckon you've done? Probably like 10 maximum, probably.
Yeah, if that. Like not many.
You've had like a lengthy conversation with like at least 85 people. Think about that. Think about how much you've learned from. Think about it. You've spoken for over an hour to these like strangers. Have you learned a lot? Have you learned a lot, do you think? Has it given you appreciation for certain things that you didn't know of before? Or
absolutely. Yeah. Like, for instance, I started asking all of my guests a very simple question, but it's because there's certain questions I introduce over time that are regular questions. So there'll be everything else I ask, and I ad lib a lot of stuff, but I always ask them as like a preliminary, no, not preliminary, a penultimate question, the last one before the final question. I always say, like, what's the biggest life lesson you've ever learned? And that always gets a different response. And there's been some really profound ones. There's been funny ones. There's been all sorts of stuff. But yeah, I always learn a lot from all of my guests, and my goal is split with it. I always try to, first of all, make them feel comfortable, because some people are just, they take to it like a duck to water. They just come on, they start talking easy, right?
Yeah.
And I'd say the majority are like that, because many of them either are podcasters or entertainers, so they're used to doing this. But some people are quite nervous. And so it's a mission to kind of make them feel comfortable, and also to get an interesting conversation out of it. And I think that I've been very successful in that regard. Like, I've always managed to get a good conversation out of each and every episode, each and every guest I've had on the show. And sometimes guests will be like apologetic, and they'll be like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't feel I was talkative enough." And it's like, no, you were. It was great. Like, it's like I said, my goal is to make them feel comfortable and get them to a point where they feel comfortable sharing things.
Yeah.
And I've had people share like very serious personal things on the show, like ordeals, things they've been through, and that can be very inspiring as well, for different reasons. So I think that's kind of my goal with it, is to kind of keep pushing it and growing it in that regard, and to become a good interviewer. I've been told that I'm a good interviewer.
I think like so.
I feel I've gotten better, but yeah, it's a progressive thing. I think you learn every time you do it, and the journey never stops with that.
Yeah. Where do you see any sort of iterations or just any changes that you're going to make in the future, or if not anything you've got lined up in terms of guests or special episodes or something? You must be doing something special for number 100, surely. No, nothing yet?
I mean, I tried to do something special for 50, and there was like zero interest from people. I'm just not big enough. There is a regular following, but it's very small.
Yeah.
So my goal is on just to keep it alive, keep doing it, basically.
The small regular following is the important one, though.
Yes, absolutely.
That.
No, that's not.
Yeah.
Well, it's like I said before. At least there's people listening, and that's, if there were 100 people that have ever watched it, those 5-10 people that keep coming back, those are the people, and that's why I keep doing it, and that's why I haven't stopped it, because there are people watching, listening. Obviously, the podcast does better on the audio platforms in comparison with YouTube. That's just inevitable. But I still feel like it's in its infancy. I think there'll be more interest when there's more interest in me as a brand. So things like TikTok help a lot. You get like a surprising number of people go, "Oh, wow, you do this and this. Oh, wow." And then you go, "Yeah." And you can introduce it in a nice way, instead of being like, "Hey, make sure you check out this thing."
Yeah.
You can just be like, "Oh, hey, yeah, I do this, by the way." And I think okay, so to fully address your question, I suppose the two major things I've really been trying to do is three, actually. One, try and get some celebrities on the show. I've been in contact with certain people. It's just really difficult to get them on the show. I mean, I guess it's, they never come out and say it, but I've had people ghost me, read my messages and ghost me and stuff. Even people I knew who are famous do that as well.
Oh, really?
There are some people I'm still in contact with to this day, and they tell me it's scheduling issues and stuff, and I'm not sure what to believe on that. I want to believe them, but at the same time, I look at who I am and who they are, and I'm very like, I'm surprised they're even giving me the time of day as far as messages are concerned, because it's like, who cares? Like, what do they get from being on my show? But I honestly believe that one day it will be a big deal to be on my show, or at least that's my hope. So that's really the overall goal. The other goal I have, which is something I've been working on, but I'm still trying to really get into fruition, is to have more discussion-based podcasts where I have people on the show just to talk about a specific topic. I was going to do that. So remember Dutch Deals was on the show a few times. He was originally going to be my co-host, and that did happen for a while, but then I think he's just too busy. He's a young lad. He's doing his own thing, just didn't have the time. And then there was someone more recently who was an older lady, and but she's a businesswoman, very busy. I thought again I was going to get a co-host there. Didn't happen. I don't think the show is destined to have a co-host. I think it's just supposed to be me, and that's it. And that's fine, but I definitely need a team for this. I'm basically what I eventually want my podcast to be is like Joe Rogan's podcast, where I have a team of people, I have like a studio and all that jazz, and we do it and we have some fun with it. But I want to do some more discussion-based ones where we talk at topics at length. I love interviewing people, but the interviews, like the purpose of those is to put that person over. Like we talk about various different topics and stuff wherever the conversation goes, and it's mostly due to like their interests or their hobbies or what their job is or whatever. But I want to have just pure conversations about specific things, either with an expert on a particular topic or even just someone that happens to know a lot about something. I've had one episode that was like that, where I interviewed someone who suffers from a disorder called maladaptive daydreaming.
Okay.
And I approached the research the same way that I do everything else, just extensive research. I learned quite a lot about the disorder and everything in preparation. And we had a fantastic interview. And this girl commented afterwards, like she was really impressed. And we had some good feedback from various sufferers in the community of it. They thought it was a good interview, a good kind of resource for people, I suppose. And it's helped some people as well, sufferers who didn't realize this is what they have. They're like, oh, this is what I have. And it's like, but I want to do more stuff like that. I did have stuff on I was, for instance, this is something that many podcasters out there can kind of relate to. I get a lot of people pull out of my podcast last minute. It happens. It's just part of podcasting. But there was one I was supposed to have about ghostwriting, and that was going to be like my second discussion podcast, and then they never got back to me. We had a date penciled in, it was going to happen, and then I emailed them on the day and nothing. Radio silence. This happens more often than you think. It's just part of podcasting. Most
something
people
to look forward to then for me, I guess. Something to look out for.
Sorry to say it, dude. I mean, a lot of people will just reschedule. Be like, oh, hey, sorry, something came up. I'm busy, blah, blah, blah. And look, we're humans. We have lives. Shit happens, right? But when it comes to just people just not getting in touch with you at all for no reason, it's a bit weird. I would prefer if people would just tell me, so I don't sit there like a moron, ready to go, and it's like, you can just say I'm not interested anymore, and I'd be like, all right,
or at least make up an excuse or something like that. Surely.
Yeah, it's anything. Just don't let me sit there like a monk for like half an hour. But it is what it is. It's just part of the process. But
no, maybe when you get people on for like a second time, maybe you can, after you've had that like first introduction episode,
we've had that.
You can sort of go into something, in a bit more detail for the second episode with someone. Maybe, I don't know.
We've had that already. I've had a few repeat guests. I've had there's a guy called David Sommerfleck, who's a business guy. I've had him on my show a few times. There's a guy called Steelsy, who's a German streamer. He's been on a few times. A good friend of mine from school, who's a YouTuber and is doing pretty well. Shout out to Calamity Hatcher,
the Sonic guy.
The Sonic guy, yeah. There's been a few, and I'm always open to having people back on my show. It's a demand thing. That's what podcasts are, and I always one thing I've learned to do is space them out, because takes a lot out of you. I'm kind of very comfortable with once a week right now. I'm trying to stick to that. But it really depends, because when I send out, what I use is Reddit and some other websites, Podit and Matchmaker. So I highly recommend those for podcasters. So you use them. Yeah.
Will do.
But Reddit is the gift that keeps on giving. That's where I seem to pick up most of them. And like I said, it's down to demand. This latest time that I appealed for guests, didn't get that many. Got a few, didn't get that many. But the other times I've done it, I was booked up for like 2 months with guests almost like several times a day. It's one of the reasons, excuse me, why I've gotten to the number that I'm at, because I just had so many guests and I was like, might as well just roll with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now it's kind of quieted down and I like it. It's good. Like, for instance, I haven't had another episode in like a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks now.
Oh, really? So is there not a schedule for when they release then, or they just sort of come out as and when?
I try to do them weekly, but I don't. For some reason, like when me, you, and Aaron did the podcast, having a specific day just stressed me out.
Yeah,
and I don't know why.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's no reason as well, because all we had to do was sit down, talk for like an hour or whatever, and then you do all the editing stuff, which just sucks, but it's just part of the process, right? And that's it. But for some reason, it just felt so stressful, and I would get like stressed beforehand, and I don't know why. So I just decided early on, like, no, I'm not going to set a day. If there's weeks where it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Like, for instance, I had a guest, I think that was it. I had a guest reschedule this week. And sometimes in those instances, I've done a standalone episode where I just talk and it's just me.
Yeah.
But I decided this is my ethos on content creating. If you don't have any ideas, just don't release anything.
Yeah.
Don't try and force things.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Just go with the flow. You got ideas, go for them. Don't have ideas, take a break. Come back to it. So that's what I do with the podcast. And like I said, there's not like a dedicated fan base or whatever yet. If there were, I think I would be a bit more maybe stricter, and I would try to commit to it, maybe not to a day, but I would try and always make sure that I have an episode every week. But I mean, it's been pretty damn reliable since, when was it? June last year, July. We're coming up to 1 year anniversary, and I've kept it ongoing the whole time. So I've very rarely missed a week. So I mean, I think it's there. Impressive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. But again, it comes down to demand. It's like, who wants to be on the show? Whatever. I've had a lot of good feedback. I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I'm just being honest here. I've had. For instance, sometimes when I post out on Reddit and I say, hey, who would like to be on the show? I'm looking for guests for this month. And there's a guy I had on the show who's an Irish guy, a really nice guy. And he always like posts a little comment and says, I love being on Christian's show. It was great. And shout out again to David Sommerfleck. He said the same thing. So I think, and it's a community. Podcasting is a community. When you join it, there's a lot, like, you end up being on each other's shows, which is kind of funny. Because people say to me, like, what could you possibly talk about when you just have podcasters on your show? And it's like, I don't just have podcasters, but it has happened a lot. And you find yourself talking about other things. We don't just talk about the podcast. If anything, that's like a backdrop thing. That's just like, oh, you're doing this thing, we'll promote it for a bit, and then we'll talk about other stuff.
It's just the thing that relates to you. But there's so much more to a person than just having a podcast. So
yeah, you got to be. I think when you do a podcast and you're doing an interview podcast, you need to be quite proactive. And reach out to a lot of people. So I've had a lot of people on my show. I've had a few from TikTok, musicians and stuff. I've reached out to people that way on Instagram. I've had people, like I said, reach out to me. You've really got to be on top of it and reach out to people a lot. You can't expect people to just come to you. Obviously, you can put out your little posts on social media and stuff like that, but most of your guests are going to come through your action of putting yourself out there, talking to people, trying to see if people are interested in stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I fully believe that I'll get more people on the show in the future once I start maybe getting some celebs on the podcast and getting a bit of traction that way. But like
it's like a snowballing effect in it. Once you get like a couple big names, then it will just be plain sailing after that, pretty much. I should imagine.
Do you know what? It's not even a definite. That's the interesting thing. Like I had, do you know Leighton Harvey? You know Leighton Harvey?
No.
Oh, you do know him. You're doing him dirty there. I
don't
so
know.
There's a guy in our community, right? He does the mental health podcast. Remember that?
I honestly, I don't know.
Okay.
No, yeah.
He's in our community.
Okay.
So shout out to Leighton Harvey. Anyway, he recently reset up his podcast and stuff, and he's in a sort of a period of like reinvention and stuff. And his first guest on his podcast was Robbie Knox, who some people might know as the guy from the Happy Hour podcast.
Yeah.
He'd been on it as a guest a few times. He'd worked on, I think, Soccer AM. He's not like a big name, but like that's a massive name to get on your first show.
Definitely.
And it's legit him. And do you know what? I was surprised the episode didn't do that well. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that's because of he didn't promote it enough, or there's just not enough interest there. But
surely,
I think
if he split that up and put that on TikTok in clips, that would have got a lot of views. Surely,
maybe. I don't know if he did that. I know he did do some clips though. But yeah, it's just nothing's dead certain. I think that's kind of the point.
For sure. Like, you need to put the work in as
even
well.
If I would, that's the thing. Even if I would get that person that I've given up on the other people I was trying to get, but there's one particular person I've been talking to for months. I can't say who they are, but I can, but I'm not going to.
Okay.
But
are they like in a YouTuber kind of circle, or are they like mainstream actor? Okay.
Yeah.
British or American?
Neither.
Where from?
I can't give it away. I can't.
Where from?
I'm not going to say.
Action films?
No. They're like
what country?
Television actor. And I'm not saying. You're not getting this out of me.
What, from like the soaps? From like soaps?
Nah,
TV soaps?
It's a cult classic as far as TV shows are concerned, and people would immediately recognize her who've watched the show. I gave away she's female. Okay. Well, I'm not going to give away anything else.
Okay, yeah,
but,
okay. I won't push for any more.
I'll tell you afterwards when we're done. I'm just not going to give it away because I don't want to say it and then it doesn't happen. You know what I mean?
Of course, yeah.
And to be, like I said, I've been trying to get this person. I don't know how many months, and I don't want to jinx it. But suffice it to say, even if I'd have her on my show and I would clip it up and do all this, I'm not so sure that it would do really, really, really well. You know what I mean? Because it's still you're still only as good as the interview. You know what I mean? It's still got to be a good conversation.
Yeah.
I honestly think I would have a good conversation with this person, but actually, I'm really eager to get them on the show, not so much because of the stuff they've been in, but because of who they are. They're actually a very interesting person, just outside of their acting, and I'm quite intrigued by that. And it's one of the reasons why I'm so eager to get them on my show. But and I
it's
feel
more
like
about the story, isn't it? It's more about the story of the person rather than like what they've done.
Because people have heard, like, the questions I would be asking them about the show is, why they've been interviewed about these things before.
It's going to be stuff people already know, isn't it? So
and
you need to come at it from a different angle. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and that's why I want to start interviewing celebrities, so I can start kind of figuring out how to do a celeb interview. I want to get some practice in with that and try and figure that one out. So
yeah. Okay, all very interesting, and it's exciting to see your progress and your plans for the future. I think that's all we have time for today, actually. But I just want to say thank you for coming on. Thanks for agreeing to be on here. It's always a good time and always very informative and interesting. I'm going to open up to you. Do you have anything you want to plug, or where can people find you if they want to hear more?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. It's been very, very enjoyable. So thank you. So I would direct them to christianreeve.com/links. You can find everything that I do there.
Okay.
My Instagram, TikTok, Discord, YouTube channels, everything in between. I'm basically everywhere online. Even if you just Google my name, Christian Reeve, you'll be able to find me pretty easily.
Yeah, I'll put the link in the description, but it'll be the link.
Thank you.
You know, the link website, Linktree, is it, or links or something like that? But it'll be down below. Okay. So yeah, like I said, thank you very much for being on there, Christian, and thanks for sticking around, everyone who's still watching. And I'll speak to you soon. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.